blood, it can't process, and for some reason it goes into your cartilage. So the crystals go into your cartilage, which is why you have like things like arthritic kind of feeling. This is why it's on the foot and stuff, but it's to do with diet. So apparently to deal with gout, you got to like eat cherries. There's unique products that sort it out.
I'm a firm believer that you are what you eat, though, right? So if you're going to be eating really unhealthy and having a healthy diet, that reflects on your body.
I don't think it's quite you are what you eat, but it is like what you eat definitely determines how your body ends up reacting, and over time you end up kind of putting stuff in there that kind of causes like terrible things. So I've just got to review this, like top to bottom, like what is the consumption, how I'm going to solve that. That's going to be important. Anyway, we're talking about gout, folks. We're talking about gout and serious illness. Exactly. Happy Friday, everybody. Listen, we're live, everybody. So welcome to Brainfood Live on Air. It is episode 192, bringing it to you every week, no fail. I am broadcasting this live from Hong Kong. This is why it's a dark skyline. And I know it's like 12 o'clock midday for you folks in the UK, 1 o'clock folks in Europe. And I think some of the early birds in the US, thank you for waking up early in order to do this show as well. Very excited to have this show with you. Of course, it is recruiter use cases for ChatGPT 2. We had such a huge response to the last time we ran this topic. We broke all records in terms of numbers of people watching live, concurrent lives as well. It was crazy. It was obvious that we had to run a part 2. And to be honest with you, we're going to run a part 3 as well as we go forward. So I've got an idea what part 3 should be. And I'll let you know what that is at the end of the day, at the end of the show. Anyway, really good to have you all on here. So why don't we just kick off, do some sound checks first of all. I actually don't think I can hear myself. So can everyone hear me okay? Let me know if you hear me and see Christine as well on screen. If you can hear us on Crowdcast, please let us know. We should be broadcasting this live on LinkedIn as well. So if you can hear and see us on LinkedIn, do let us know there as well. We had about 500 people watch it on LinkedIn last time. It's crazy. So yeah, okay, people sound great. Thank you very much, Pietro. Appreciate that. Just quickly checking LinkedIn because I need that on my phone. Yeah, I think that's okay. Cool. All right. We're also broadcasting this on Twitter and Facebook as well. We have 300 people watching on Twitter. Would you believe? Crazy.
Amazing.
Last week. Anyway, we're with Christine. Christine, how are you? Good to see you, of course.
Not too bad. I think everyone's very shocked about your bathrobe situation. They're calling you the Hugh Hefner of recruitment.
I'm in the Hyatt, and I've actually got laundry. My clothes are in the laundry, which I've got to get out of here tomorrow because obviously with my hospital situation, my mum is in hospital. By the way, it's like not major, but this is the reason why I'm in this hotel at this point. But yeah, I've had laundry done, and basically I've got nothing else. You have to just deal with it, folks.
It's kind of work Friday night after all.
Exactly, it's Friday evening. Give me some slack. All right, let's. What do we got to do? We got to thank our sponsors, don't we? We have to thank our sponsors, folks, because without our sponsors that come in every week and really help us kind of set the show on the road, we're not able to run it without their support. So today, I'm pleased to say it is one of our regular sponsors. It is Metaview. They're going to come on. In fact, Sal's going to come on. He's going to tell us all about Metaview. And here's the good news, by the way. I just found this out. Didn't find out, but Stephanie reminded me earlier today when I had a chat with her that Sal is like a new dad for the second time. And he's just welcomed a second baby to the family. And yet he's still going to come on to do the show with us, which is going to be amazing. So let's get Sal on board, and he can come and tell us about his new addition to the family, as well as talk to us a little bit about Metaview. Here he is. This audio on my end, I think, is still weird. I'm not sure whether I'm actually hearing it through my headphones.
Yeah.
There he is.
Hi.
Hey, folks.
Hey.
Sal, how are you?
Congratulations.
Congratulations, mate.
Thank you. Yeah, a week old today. She was born a week and 1 hour ago. She was born. So
Amazing,
Exactly.
amazing stuff. And how are you coping, Sal? You're a pro at being a dad these days, aren't you? I mean, in your stride, or what is it? Nightmares
Well,
returned, or how's it going?
I was a shell of a human being for a couple of months after the first one, but this one so far seems to be a bit more chill. So we'll see.
Amazing.
Amazing stuff.
You
Well,
bring them on
congratulations
sometime
to you
as
and
part
your
of the
family.
demo.
Yeah.
That's it.
If they were AI generated, I'd bring them on. But these
Are they?
These
Aren't they?
actually human generated humans.
Yeah.
You know, a bit old fashioned these days, Sal, but you know, this is how it goes. Anyway, Sal, thank you so much for joining. I know you got loads of things and you're going to come back and do the demo with us as well and hang around for a rest. But why don't you tell us all about Metaview? What is it all about? Why should people care about it?
Yeah, we'll do. Cheers. Hey folks, I'm Sile, as Hung and Christine mentioned, one of the co-founders at Metaview. Really pumped to be sponsoring this episode. Big fan of the community, also a bit of a contributor, and especially pumped about this episode because of the focus on GPT, which you'll see more about and how that's relevant to our product in later in the show. Metaview broadly is a leading interview intelligence platform. So we enable you to take control of your interview process. What this means is higher quality, higher velocity hiring, especially, at the moment, quality is key. It all comes down to, we record and transcribe your interviews for you. So you actually have an understanding as a recruiter or recruiting leader of what is actually happening in this key part of your hiring process. This massive dependency you have in your ability to hire great teams is all those interviews that occur. So we've got amazing customers like Pleo, Brex, Katawiki, Shopify, and a bunch more. We have an incredible 90% user, that's both recruiter and interviewer satisfaction rating among our users, 5-star reviews on G2, and most importantly, we really move those needles that matter. So our customers enjoy a 30% improved time to offer and a 16% improved offer acceptance rate. All about quality and speed of that process and interviews. It turns out, I think we all knew all along, but now we're starting to see the evidence for it, are really a key component of that. So your ability to sort of affect them really matters. Last thing, Hung sort of mentioned it, especially pumped to be sponsoring this episode because we've just launched the game-changing feature that is actually powered by GPT. It's called AI Notes, whereby we provide recruiters and interviewers with automatically summarized notes of what happened in the conversation you just completed with a candidate. Been getting incredible feedback from both recruiters and interviewers, legitimately hearing phrases like life-changing and game changer, nothing I would improve, that sort of stuff. Really, really sort of helping folks focus much more on running a great conversation rather than just being a scribe. Really being that human sort of relationship-focused recruiter as opposed to that transactional, let me note down what you said and then pass that on to the hiring manager, which is a massive transition that a lot of our customers want to make. Yeah,
and it's about being in the moment, is it? I mean, one of the things about candidate experience is that you have to be present with the candidate. I remember actually my last ever recruitment call as a recruitment agent. Here's a little story for you. I was so hungover that day that I was not able to have a conversation with a candidate with my full presence, but I was so experienced as a recruiter. I was able to ask questions in order to trigger a response so I could get a little bit of shut eye as I was on the call. And it was one of those where, okay, I sleep for 2 seconds, give him a question, and then he'd respond. And I did all this, executed the call, thought it was all right. But then I kind of had a moment of triumph. I thought, yeah, I really got away with that. But then I had a realization. I thought, you know what, Hung? What you've done there is that you've absolutely disrespected that candidate. Because you weren't there at even 5%. You weren't even physically in good shape. So you disrespected your employer by being there. And finally, you disrespected yourself. Like, you literally rocked into this thing with low commit, 5% effort. Yes, you managed to get sort of execute the situation because you were so experienced, but you checked out mentally of this job. So I resigned immediately after that call. After that realization, it just hit me like a ton of bricks. I thought, look, this is done.
Wow.
You know, it's over. It's over because of the disrespect I had for myself at that point. And I think, you know, what you're saying there, Sal, is, you know what? Stop the note taking. Machine's going to do it for you. focus on the candidate and that conversation and find out what he or she really wants out of this job. Find out exactly what the motivators are. Find out, get that quality human connection, and that candidate is going to walk away feeling, you know what, that's a good business, that's a good recruiter, and that is going to be the differentiator. Anyway, Sile, wonderful to get you on the show. We're going to look forward to your demo as well, and also, look forward to seeing generally from your worldly experience, because you're an experienced technologist these days. So I'm sure you've also had a lot of thoughts about where GPT and OpenAI and all of this new technology is going to take us. I mean, we've seen some incredible changes already. Bill Gates today has just said, look, this is going to change the world. I think a lot of us are kind of looking along those lines also. So look forward to your input and contributions at that point as well. Okay, Sal, I will see. We'll bring you back. Thanks for the sponsor message, man.
Cheers, folks. See you soon. Bye.
Bye.
Cool. Good guy, and I was amazed that he's still able to do all of this whilst he is now like he must be massively strange. Is it one of the problems with working from? I think Sal does work more or less from home. He's got an office in town, but one of those things is that obviously you're always going to be on call with the family as well, aren't you? So, super. Anyway, check out metaview.ai. Well, worth having a look at. Okay, let's get on with the show, folks. We're going to be talking about recruiter use cases firstly. So actually, before we bring people on, let's ask Christine, because Christine, you are still an active recruiter. What has your experiments been with ChatGPT to date? And don't be afraid to say nothing, because I think most people are still around the edges of this.
Experimenting. Yeah, no, because part of my role, and also on that active recruitment part, I have to leave at 1 on the dot. So if I just bounce off, it's because I've got a hiring meeting. But on that, because my role is also encompassing things like social and welcoming the team, it's very helpful for internal comm. So I'll put in there, new starter in DevOps, and this is the role what they're going to be doing, this is where they come from. It's just helped me craft a really lovely intro message, and to be honest, exactly in scenarios like you mentioned, when I'm really tired or brain's just not really switching from A to B to writing content, it's been incredible. But obviously from a recruitment context, I've tried it with outreach. I still find, and I think this kind of leads to one of the blogs that you mentioned this week in Brainfood, there's still bits that I still personally need to tweak, because there's some bits of it that didn't read quite well. So I think the actual initial generation of the initial reach out message was great. I just put, okay, this is the candidate's like brief information. How would you write a little outreach to it? But what I found really cool is you can start having then conversations with it. Oh, can you change it to this? Can you add quantum computing to the message? Can you add innovative? So like it's learning from all your previous messages to then come up to the most optimized message. So that's what I've played with so far.
That's pretty deep. I've got to be honest, pretty deep. I think when you get to the point where you're actually interacting with it and getting it to do more, and literally having a conversation. I mean, that's what it is. That's when you're going to get the juice out of it. So yeah, I mean, I've not actually got to that stage myself. I'm at the very, very shallow level where it's about producing the draft copy of something. And I think you can just copy and paste that and make it use something. But there's been other people that have been deeply experimental with it, including people like Irina, for instance, who was actually meant to be on these shows, but she was on holiday most of the time. I think she just come back, and I'm now in a different part of the world. But she's done some really amazing things. But anyway, let's bring on some of our guests. They're going to tell us about how they've done things. And like I say, no one's an expert. We're all just experimenting. We're all just going to show these experiments. And then we'll see how we go. So I can see Marcel actually active on the chat stream. So let's bring Marcel on. Haven't seen Marcel for a while, actually. That would be nice to see. We have Alla, of course, who's doing a role switch. She's going to come on and tell us about, what kind of experiments she's been running. And I believe Natalia is here as well. Let me see if I can find Natalia. Oh, dear. Oh, so there's like 6 Natalias. Here we go. Actually, thank you. Natalia's actually got her second name in there, which is perfect. And there's Marcel. There he is. Good to see you.
Hello. Hello.
Long time no see. Great to see you, mate. Marcel, as you're first on screen, why don't you quickly introduce yourself? Who are you? What it is you do?
I'm Marcel. I'm a sourcing trainer. I do a lot of sourcing also still myself. I have a company called Klikwork. This is a Dutch company, and I have a platform called sourcingtrain.com.
Fantastic stuff. And you should you can make yourself available to all of those things. Just follow Marcel. I just shared his LinkedIn URL there. Just make sure you follow him, and he's able to distribute a lot of his content on LinkedIn and also his Facebook group as well. Share the link to your Facebook group in the chat, Marcel. Make sure people are aware of that.
Yep.
Okay, that's Natalia. Natalia, I don't think we've ever met before, but wonderful to see you. Can you quickly introduce yourself? Who are you? What it is you do?
Hello, great to be here. So thank you for the invitation. So I'm Natalia. I'm a talent sourcer, and I'm supporting Rogers Communications, which is a telco company based out of Canada. So I can witness, the sunrise right away. So hello to my folks from the north.
Fantastic stuff. Great to see you, Natalia. And I think Alla is here, but unfortunately not on screen. I don't know why that is. Alla, I'm going to actually remove you, and then you can come back, and we'll see what happens, okay? Alla, of course, all of you know, regular on the show, but she's always like kind of doing the co-host thing, which means that she basically we're not able to see the real work she does, which is actually some fantastic stuff. So hence we have a swap of scenery today. Okay, I have invited you again, Alla, so waiting for you. What's happening there? Why is she minimized? Is that because I've run out of money, maybe?
Have you
It's
invited her
possible.
back?
I don't know. Look, Alla, can you say something?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Okay, you are disembodied, but I think this happened last time. It might be something to do with a camera switch or something. I wonder whether you could fiddle with the things a little bit and see what's what. But in the meantime, we're going to assume we can't actually see you on screen, so it'd be wonderful to see you on screen if you can do that. But let's go to Marcel firstly. Marcel, you've been super active in the group, the most active recruiting group. By the way, share the link to that group as well into the chat stream. Somebody.
Yeah, I did it already.
You did it already. Amazing. Tell us about ChatGPT. What have you been doing with it, Marcel? What have you find particularly useful in terms of a use case, you think, now that you've done some experimentations with it?
Some research for skills, titles, synonyms of titles, synonym of skills, explanation of it. Just put a job description into ChatGPT and ask it to find keywords, where you can find keywords. Diversity search, list of universities, first names of women, men, write responses to emails, LinkedIn messages. And I also experimented with Zapier, because you have a good connection with Zapier. So you can have a type form connection in, put it in Zapier, and then connect it with OpenAI and push it out to email or whatever you have.
Oh, that last example sounds really interesting. I mean, it sounds like you've done a lot of experimentation, Marcel, and a lot of the things you're talking about. I mean, it already looks like it's something that's going to change a lot of the work that recruiters have traditionally done. And I'm kind of detecting that the naysayers are starting to recede a little bit, like every day, because it's becoming increasingly obvious that actually this is going to make a huge change to our work and everyone's work, to be honest, not just recruiters, it's everyone's jobs. And the knowledge work space is going to be a big game changer here. So we're going to talk about, I think, the Zapier example. I think is worth chewing over, but let's say hello to Alla first. Thanks for getting on screen, Alla. I don't know what's going on there, but wonderful to see you. Why don't you quickly introduce yourself? Who are you? What it is you do?
Hi, everyone. My name is Alla. I'm based in Amsterdam. I'm a still like hands-on sourcer. I do trainings, work in gaming, enjoying it, and I can't wait to share with you what I'm doing with ChatGPT right now.
Amazing. Okay, let's go. Before we go to you, Alla, let's go to you first, Natalia. What have you been doing with ChatGPT? Like, what's been most useful for you in terms of your experiments you've done so far? Natalia, can you hear me?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. So go ahead.
Yeah, perfect. So like to me, like ChatGPT is more like a Gutenberg printing press. So there is before and after. So I'm quite actively using it throughout the process, basically in every single activity. So what I like most is ability to analyze the text. For instance, you can put throw your job description and just analyze the sentiment. Is this job description is gender neutral, inclusive, and it can explain even why yes, why not. So that was a good one. Second, for interview questions. Interview questions are good, but what ChatGPT can do, basically it can layer the scenarios. So okay, here's the questions that you provided to me. Now bring some scenarios. What would be a good answer for this question? So you teach yourself and you have some scenarios what to expect from the individuals and what you may not understand from the technologies. One of the most mesmerizing things is just when you can input some text and ask to apply the rules of this text. For instance, I put a job description, I put our company, and I prompted, okay, so here is the information, the role, company, and right now please apply Maslow hierarchy of needs and summarize based on Maslow hierarchy of needs how these needs will be met at our company through the job description that I provided to you, and it gave pretty good answer. And the other thing is just a very simple one, but for instance, whenever you have a discussion with the hiring manager, sometimes you need to be very versed, what is good for you, how good is your good. So for instance, what you can do, you can put any technology, any skill, and then ask to categorize the skill. So let's say beginner, intermediate, and advanced level, and now provide the actual scenarios. What would be the beginner level, the intermediate, and advanced? And it helps, tons of time in terms of getting on the same page with the hiring manager. So how good is your good? And one thing that I discovered this week, I started using more extensions to augment the overall experience with ChatGPT. I'm using right now AIPRM extension. So what it brings, you can record your prompts. So instead of, we still have quite repetitive tasks. For instance, here's the job description. Now take the basic skills, explain, the technologies or categorize the technologies. So you can record the whole scenario, what you want to do with that. And everything will be performed just with one click. And that's actually cool.
Okay, that's amazing. What I want you to do, Natalia, is actually, if it's possible to screen share that, that would be wonderful to try and have a look at. So try and pull that up. That's Chrome extension. I want to see that in action in a second. You by the way, I love the kind of the breakdown of the skills level. Because how many times as recruiters have we get from the hiring manager, I need a strong Python developer? Like, what the heck do you mean strong? Like, do you mean like bench pressing 300 pounds strong? What does that actually mean? Nobody knows. The hiring manager kind of knows, but he or she's not been able to articulate it to us what it means, and we end up deploying it to the candidates. We say, yeah, we are strong, and then it's like no one knows what strong is. So instead, you could say, okay, why didn't ask ChatGPT to say, okay, why don't you break this down into beginner, intermediate, experienced, expert, whatever category or whatever taxonomy you want to put in, and then you can say what are the scenarios in which an expert Python developer would experience or be expected to handle, and then suddenly it brings it to life what that means, and that you'll be able to then get through exactly what the my dad's calling me. I'll have to decline that. Sorry. That's fine. I will get back to him. So basically, it's one of those educational factors. It's one of those things that's going to bring you closer to the hiring manager where previously there was a little bit of distance. So that's a fantastic example. Okay, Marcel, I'll ask you the same thing. Can you kind of pull up the Zapier thing as an example? It'd be quite nice to maybe have a walkthrough of that if we get a chance in a bit. So try and pull it out whilst I speak to Alla about some of the stuff that she's been doing. So Alla, tell us about some of your experiments. What's been useful for you? What would you like to tell us?
Sure. You know that I like to hang out with developers, and I'm always in the Discord channels and the Slack and like listening what they're doing. And I saw more and more messages like, hey, I just fooled the recruiter. I just did my HackerRank test. I just did my take-home test with the ChatGPT. So, hey, have a look. And I was like, what is happening? There's more and more messages like that. So I know that a lot of test assignments can be found on GitHub, can be found also on Glassdoor. So what I started to do, I started to run these tests through the ChatGPT and asking my friends like CTO level, super experienced engineers, like, hey, do you think this person will pass the interview? Was the code is good? Was the test assignment good? All of them said it's perfect. It's amazing. So I will hire this person. So it made me really think that it looks like, and ChatGPT is hiring more software engineers to become better at coding, that we also, as recruiters, need to keep up and find the way for better testing. So all these tests that were done before, so for me, I feel like they're useless. They're not going to give us any good context anymore. And I'm working on the solutions like some kind of, new old ways to test someone's coding skills, where you probably have to be with the person on the call, or it should be something different. So I don't know yet. So that's why I'm also using a lot of research to find out the pair programming could be a good thing, something else. So, but what I definitely know that it looks like any test assignments could be solved by ChatGPT already.
Yeah, I think the take-home test is over, right? I mean, the cover letter is over. There's no way that's a viable product anymore. The CV is over, isn't it? I mean, I could just throw people. Here's a bunch of things I've done, and I could say to ChatGPT, here's the job I'm applying for. Can you reformat my CV in order to be most appropriate for this job I'm applying for? Boom. It's out there in less than 10 seconds it takes to type it all out, and then I've got the ideal CV for it. So the CV is kind of out the window. Take-home test is gone. I think one thing that's going to be interesting for us recruiters is that we're going to be tasked with trying to identify what is a generated response compared to what is a human response. That's going to be on us. So that there's a little bit where we've got to develop enough skills in this to either identify what's a generated response or be able to test for it in some way. And then the people we pass on to the hiring managers or the clients, they would expect that those people have been validated as at least as far as it's a human production of what it is. I don't think you can get away with here's a candidate and then later on the hiring manager discovered that CV was generated by this, the test result was generated by that. That's on us. So there's a big component of our job is now going to be about fraud detection, I think. Okay, cool.
Thinking out loud here. Sorry, Hung, because
Go ahead.
you know how OpenAI, then how these university professors started saying they're worried about students using ChatGPT. So they're now using this text classifier thing, which apparently the success rate's only like 26%, right? So it kind of makes me think, is like a commercial product team model in the future is essentially for in-house people like us who are using these products to detect whether or not tech tests and CVs and whatnot are written from ChatGPT. So is that the commercial model that we're potentially going to thinking out loud?
Yeah, we should not fight the technologies for sure. So we should use them and be happy that ChatGPT just showed us that our testing system is not ideal. So our testing system needs to keep up. We need to really be fast in changing that. So that's my main takeaway. So we need to be faster as the technologies are fast.
Yeah, I agree with it. I don't think you can. There's already software like watermarking. I think OpenAI is talking about this, but everything can be faked. I mean, you could just pipe it, you could just wash it through and launder the content into various forms, and it will be very difficult for you to figure out. So I think that, or at least the effort required to figure out is going to not be there. We're going to just have to change the assessments in some way. We can no longer do big components of the stuff that we used to rely on. This is good news, by the way, for testing platforms. The likes of Codility, HackerRank, Code Signal. I mean, all of those things. I think, buy stock in them. They're going to be in great shape. Okay, let's have a look at some demos in this if we can. Let's go to you, Natalia. Can you kind of do a screen share and have a look at, if you go and hover at the top of your screen, you should be able to share screen, I believe. There'll be some option to do that, and then show us what this new Chrome extension does. I think it would be quite interesting for us to view this.
Yeah, let me just try to pull up my screen.
Make sure you click off some of those dodgy tabs, Yes, Barbara, you're quite right. But how can you trust OpenAI to do that? Because fundamentally, they've created the tool that is that kind of is, is doing the generation. I think you can't trust it. It's going to have to the assessment's going to have to be very contextual to the business yourself, and I think it's going to be more in person, or at least real time synchronized type assessments. I'm reminded, has anyone seen the film Blade Runner? I mean, I'm sure all of us have, right? The original Blade Runner. What's the name of that original test that they tested for replicants? Where they asked questions and you kind of looked at your retina or something. But that was that's the kind of thing I think we're going to have to try and do. We have to look at the developer in the eye and then see what's what. How are we doing with this, Natalia?
I think it's a little bit, it doesn't come up my way. So
do you want to keep fiddling with that? Maybe when you should do that, we'll switch to Marcel for a sec.
Yes,
Marcel,
please.
can you share screen and show us a little bit about what you're talking about with Zapier?
Yes, let me share my screen.
Okay, cool.
You can see my screen?
Yep, we can.
Just some simple steps. A webhook, which picks up the questions of a Typeform thing, then send it to a prompt in OpenAI, then do some delay, because if you send it directly to the email, OpenAI doesn't have time to elaborate to write the text, and then send it to a Gmail account. And let me share this in Dutch. So ask a couple of questions, and then it goes to the prompting. And sorry, this is Dutch, but it basically asks, you act like a professional text writer, give you some inputs for a text, want to write you a vacancy text with some role, a company name, a place where they live, how many hours per week, etc., and some specifics where you have to be have to take in mind if you write the vacancy text. And it basically comes out with a really good vacancy text, to be honest.
That's crazy.
So, and basically you can put anything in between, in front and in the end part of ChatGPT.
That's amazing. How did you connect it to OpenAI? I'm not aware of that sort of a process, Marcel. Can you walk us through that?
It's just a basic Zapier. Let me check if I can say this. OpenAI.
Oh.
My apps, sorry, let's see.
Is
it's a little bit slow, sorry.
No, is there actually, so that basically there's an OpenAI integration with Zapier, basically.
Yeah. Correct.
Wow,
And you have to put in your API key, where you can get this from openai.com.
Yeah,
and you can put it here. You can pull anything in between.
that's crazy. I didn't even realize it was so advanced. It's already got an integration with Zapier. So, folks, if you didn't know anything about Zapier, but essentially it is an automation tool that allows you to do, if-then type sort of triggers. So you can set sequences of events up. And of course, previously, without a generator like OpenAI, it would be, a pretty crude. You'd have to write templates essentially. But now it seems that with OpenAI, you can give it instructions and it will generate you customized messaging. It looks like. I mean, that's crazy. That is like, that's someone's job, folks. That is like a candidate engagement person's job, or it's a CRM. Right now, Marcel has shown us, I don't think there's any money being paid by Marcel, but he's shown us something that is a very sophisticated CRM in terms of the production of customized email messaging. So this is from software which is currently free. That's absolutely crazy. So jump, I was just going to jump on this. I mean, there's no question. Okay, Marcel, that's great. You can stop sharing screen now. Natalia, keep fiddling. Let me know when you've managed to get something to show us in terms of the Chrome, even the Chrome extension with Lou. But Alla, let's go to you first. Do you have anything you could potentially demonstrate where you can say, yeah, this is actually quite an interesting technique that you've used?
Unfortunately, is I run the test assignment through the ChatGPT. So basically, I do have only the examples of the solved assignments and send them to the experienced software engineers and saying, yeah, I would hire this person. So what I willing to do, and maybe we will have to have like a search show, is to come up with ideas using the ChatGPT and the software engineers that I'm engaged with, suggestions for the better assignments to test where there's so many AIs are available. So I'm sorry, nothing to showcase because it's like still work in progress.
That's totally okay, but I tell you what, that's a really good idea, because I think developers themselves must now be like looking at this and thinking, how on earth are we going to tell? Because look, the entire we're just talking tech here, but the entire sort of tech assessment process that we've previously been using, there's big chunks of that we can't use anymore. There's like 200 million people are using ChatGPT, and if you're a developer going for a job and you're not using it, you're an idiot. Do you know what I mean? It's like, oh, if you're a student and you're not using this to try and get better at your exam, you're a fool. Of course you should be using it. And of course you will. This is a huge game changer in terms of everything that we need to be doing. Okay, folks, I've just been looking at a time and we're like literally flying through the show as usual. So we might need to move swiftly on because we've got more people to bring onto the show, particularly when it comes down to things like new product integrations and stuff like that. So Natalia, final shot on this. Can you show us the Chrome extension? It'd be good to see that in action if that's possible.
Yeah, just in the interest of time. So I'm shared like the exact link to the video, how to create your prompt. So basically, you just add like a script based on the video that I shared in the chat. What it gives to you. So it integrates your prompts the way you want it. So you have your prompt saved, whatever the scenario is, and you just, select your prompt. You can, there are shared prompts by the community, so you can use already, prompts that are there in the system, or you can create your own. So for those scenarios that you are running on a daily basis, you can have just your own prompts and just use everything, perform the task just in one click, and that's amazing.
That's crazy. I remember, Auto Text Expander. You remember that whole thing? It's called Magical now. When that first came out, I thought, wow, this is so cool. It's like, this is going to solve my problems. Now you've got this thing. It's like totally like the same mechanics, but it's like several levels of intelligence higher than that. Imagine if you had basically a way in which you could just record your prompts. And according from what you've just said there, Natalia, there's a community of people sharing prompts. So presumably there's lots of humans doing this work for you as well. Which is, again, just lean on that work. This is a game-changing type of scenario. Okay, we have to move on, folks. Thank you so much for joining us, Marcel, Alla, and Natalia. I hope you're going to hang around and enjoy the rest of the show. We've got to move swiftly on, though. Okay, folks, this is actually a good opportunity to do something that we always do at the middle of every show. That is to say, Brainfood is a conversation starting show. It should never be a bottleneck to stop the conversation. So now is the time. Take your LinkedIn URL and share it in the chat stream, and make sure you connect with everyone else who has done the same. There's 240 people watching this live on Crowdcast. I think there's 170 watching it live on LinkedIn. Therefore, if you just shared, if 10% of you shared your links in LinkedIn, you'd walk away 30, 40, 50 quality connections that are interested in recruiter use cases for ChatGPT. Make sure you go and connect with those folks and then continue the conversation with them afterwards when we have to come off air, because, hey, this conversation needs to keep happening. The reason, by the way, Christine, that we want to do this show like rapid succession, because I suspected we'd get developments like on a daily, weekly basis, right?
Yeah. I mean, news are coming out literally every day, like Alphabet's yesterday, and their stock price pretty much wiping out however much because
you know
their
what?
demo was not working.
But you've never seen Google panic, but they're panicking.
I know, that was a really reactive decision on their part, and it didn't work well. It was a James Webb telescope that they gave the wrong answer to or something, right?
But they've also come out with a bunch of other new releases today.
Strange.
So they're almost like at the Elon Musk level of just chucking things out, because I think they know that they've been sitting on this way in advance. Like they, if anybody should know how to process text and generate this, it should be them. They bought DeepMind, for Christ's sake, and they've had that for ages. So, but they've not productized it, and they've got this huge problem with productizing things. And I think it's caught them on the hop. It really has.
Yeah. I think ethics and AI was also a big part, right? Like they got called out by so much of the ethical and AI usage. So that probably also hindered their product roadmap. Whereas on OpenAI, they were a startup that was acquired by Microsoft, so they had a lot more agility, I suppose, if you will, without the constraints of a larger company and having to deal with ethics.
Imagine that, exactly. You've got to throw ethics out, folks. If you want to innovate, mad scientists, that's the way forward. Okay, let's get on with this. I think everyone's sharing their links, which is good. Make sure you keep doing that. By the way, folks, you got any questions, use the ask a question feature. We'll get to them to end of the show. This should be a 60-minute, but we're going to go 90 minutes because that's just going to be what it is. Christine, you have to drop out at some point, I know, which is a shame. But that's all good. But we're going to keep going until the conversation, we've exhausted everything we can. So ask a question if you want to ask a question. If you are watching this on LinkedIn, Twitter, or Facebook, just put the question into the comment thread there, and I'll try and get to them. There's other people that are going to help kind of pick those questions up as well, and we'll ask them towards the end. Okay, let's bring on some founders. We've got some people out there. They're going to demo stuff for us, because one of the challenges, what I wanted to do is open mic to say, okay, if you're a product maker and you think you've got something cool to show, come on and show it. So we've got a bunch of folks here that are going to try and do that. Let's bring on Amit Palmer, and then see. That's quite funny when Amit came and said, "Yeah, how long have I got, Hung?" I said, "Yeah, it's 60 seconds, man." I'm joking. No one's got 60 seconds. But you know what? Let's not have a long story. Let's get straight into the demo and see what you got. Amit, I've just invited you on screen. Just accept that, and you should be coming on. I forget who else should be coming on. There he is. Amit Palmer, suitably attired. That's quite right. Everyone should be swagged up. Amit, good to see you, sir. Why don't you quickly introduce yourself? Who are you? What it is you do, man?
Yeah, likewise. Great show. I've been enjoying the conversation. Amit Parmar with Klikwork. Been in talent over the last 17 years, based in New York. Founded Klikwork about 3 years ago. Fortunate enough to actually get OpenAI, and we actually built our product on OpenAI. So super excited about that. So happy to show you what we're up to.
Okay, let's do it, man. Why don't you share the screen, Amit? I think you can do that by hovering over your window. There should be a share screen option there. Go ahead and do that, and then sort of see whether you can pull something up. Patrick, yep, absolutely, we'll bring you on. In fact, this is open mic, so if you have a product and you want to demo it, go ahead and do that. Just pipe up on the chat stream, and we'll get you on. Okay, Paul Batchelor, yeah, you're coming on as well, Paul. So is that two Pauls? Patrick and Paul, and I think Sal's going to come on as well. There we go. Perfect. Okay, what are we looking at? Amit, talk us through this.
All right, so we're an employer branding platform. So one of my biggest challenges as a TA leader was how do I equip my recruiters and hiring managers to tell amazing stories where the candidates are most hanging out, right? Mostly they're on LinkedIn, Twitter, Insta, TikTok, and so on. So we've created this employer branding platform where you can create assets. So the branding team and the recruiting team work together to create these assets based on your EVP. And we have these categories that go across. And once the content is created, then you basically turn it on across thousands of employees within an enterprise. They come into the platform and they're able to share amazing stories about their culture, not just jobs. Of course, jobs is one of our categories, but really, how do you tell stories aided by OpenAI and GPT? So essentially, I'll give you an example. Let's talk about benefits, right? Mental wellness, big deal for a lot of folks out there around the world. So as an employee, let's say I'm passionate about it. I'll just go into the platform. I'll share this as an example. And we have this caption generator. So this is a big bottleneck for a lot of people. When they're about to share content, many organizations are very buttoned up, if you will, in terms of content. So a lot of them actually will, just give recruiters very generic branded content that candidates can see right through, right? So what we did almost 3 years ago is partnered with OpenAI to actually start to train the machine based on content for that organization. So your website content, your career site content, your job descriptions. And what we have termed it is our Clio, which is Klikwork Engagement Optimizer. It's really powered by OpenAI. And what it does is it'll actually create captions for you. So that's a big use case for us that recruiters love, and for your employees, right? So, and it's still learning, right? So it's got machine learning built into it. So if you don't like some of the captions, you can actually generate new captions, and it'll actually start to track user behavior to see what a particular person likes in terms of the captions that's generated by GPT versus not. And they can always edit the content. So we never want to kind of take over the personalization of the content. So what we do is we basically suggest the post caption. And we also have, we're actually training our machine on the images as well. So not just the text, but we're working with OpenAI to actually see what kind of text and images are driving the analytics. So we're constantly feeding the machine with the actual content that's driving the most traffic to your jobs or your career site, wherever you want to drive the traffic to. So that's a quick use case of how we're using it. I think somebody mentioned, sorry, I'll pause there.
No, that's amazing. I mean, again, you can see the evidence of this. I think you're absolutely right, Amit. It's not enough to give your employees the asset, because things like LinkedIn will say, hey, you got to comment on it. You can't just link share these days. And it will say, oh, you got to now say something. I know myself that's my bottleneck, because it's like, oh, now I can't, what am I going to say? Hey, click here, folks. No, you're under pressure to say something. And then, you get interrupted. Before you know it, you've lost your thread. You never get back to it. You clicked off the tab. It doesn't happen. So having a way to get this, to get AI to essentially help you get it on brand and get it out there, boom. I think that's an obvious use case. Okay, I think you can stop sharing screen now. Thank you so much for that example. I think that's wicked. And this is ready to go, right? People can use it. They can get on with it.
Oh, absolutely. We have some amazing brands, MGM Resorts, Baker Tilly, you name it, Farmers Insurance, mostly in the US at the moment. But yeah, it's ready to roll. If anybody's interested, check us out, klikify.me.
Okay, share the link in the chat stream, Amit. Make sure people get in touch with you there. Okay, wonderful stuff. Thank you so much for coming on, Amit. Okay, next up, let's go with Patrick. Patrick, you're up, man. Sal, I'll bring you on shortly. Don't worry, mate. Patrick Alden, there he is. Boom. Hey, this is an unscheduled demo. I mean, I don't even know what this product is. It could just be something totally off the wall. We have no clue. It's part of the excitement of live shows, folks.
It's definitely like no demo, like praying to the demo gods that everything's working. It's working great.
Indeed. Patrick, how are you doing, sir? Thanks for jumping on, man.
Hey, guys. Yeah,
Hey.
I was a lot to my camera than I realized. You got a massive zoom in of my face there. Sorry about that.
Don't worry. Very pleasant experience it was for our viewers there, Patrick. Okay, Patrick, why don't you quickly intro yourself, your product, and then we'll go straight into the demo.
Nice. Can you see my screen?
Yep.
Yeah.
Nice one. Cool. So yeah, I'm Patrick from Prolog. So we're a startup building a next-gen ATS, specifically designed for startups, scale-ups, tech companies. We've been in stealth for the last year. We've talked to a lot of people on the call in private, and this is one of the first things we're doing in public, so it's great to speak with you all. So let's get into it. So yeah, we've built our entire product around GPT in various ways. So yeah, I'm going to show you two of those areas today, an application review and then a follow-up after an interview. So I'm going to do it live. I'm going to refresh the page so you know there's no funny business here. This is real. So this is a typical application review screen you're going to see in Prolog. And we've all seen millions of these. We've got some application, we've got some experience. This is actually our CTO who's applied for a job as a full stack engineer here. On the right, we've got this insights panel. Now, this is ticking away as I'd be reading this myself as a recruiter. It takes a little time. Right now, the APIs can be, take between 10 and 20 seconds to generate a response. Once that's come through, what I can see is a list of pros and cons for this candidate based on the job description and their profile, right? So obviously, I don't want to base all my reasoning on these, but they can help me enrich areas that I'm not fully understanding or which maybe I've missed in the profile. Next, once I've picked one of these areas that appear on the right, I can actually go ahead and I can either move the candidate stage or disqualify. And what we'll do is we'll actually create a message based on that reason, essentially. And you can construct a template around this, and that message will just appear in the middle, or it can generate the whole message. So in this case, we reject you due to your lack of experience using this technology in the job description. We appreciate your efforts and so on. And basically for us, this is super exciting because a big part of what we're trying to build towards is really getting that candidate experience for your successful, but also your not successful candidates absolutely nailed. And for us, that means that ghosting candidates, sending them crappy stock rejection messages is sort of no longer necessary. And that takes literally 10 seconds to do. The next thing I wanted to show you was, this is our post-interview screen that a recruiter would come to basically figure out what's going on with this candidate. So this is Tom. He's another applicant for this job. What we've done is we've obviously taken all those interview notes that our hiring team have assembled, and we've generated an AI summary of those notes for the recruiter. So they don't have to kind of fish through all the notes to understand exactly what happens. They've got just a really easy to understand, concise explanation there. With that, they can actually, let's say this candidate's done pretty well. He's a 4.3. Let's progress him. We'll again generate a message and we'll feed some of that information through into the message. So in this case, this sentence is generated with GPT. So what we're doing there is we're kind of creating more personalization around how we communicate with our candidates with really very minimal overheads. One thing that's super interesting here is actually because this is running inside your ATS, we actually encode your organization's tone of voice, how you want to speak with candidates, and we put that into the prompt. So you can get really consistent, warm, more professional, whatever your tone of voice is, messages across all your candidates. I can send that to Tom. And then just finally, this is not necessarily ChatGPT related, but in Prolog, actually, one of the things we do that's super different is candidates actually have a way to view their own application. So that would be an email that goes off, but they can also see that at the top of their page, which they have passwordless access to take the next step, which in this case would be scheduling an interview, which they can do here. That's us. Super keen to talk about this more. I'll put our URL in the chat. Please come along and have a look.
Fantastic stuff, Patrick. I love the rapid fire going through the feature set there. That was awesome. And by the way, folks, I think it's pretty obvious that one of the things that ChatGPT is particularly good at is summarizing and condensing information. Textual information, it's just perfect for that. And if you have something of that type, that's exactly what you should do. Okay, Patrick, share the link into the chat stream there. Make sure people get in touch with you. Thank you so much for coming on, man.
Thank you.
Cool.
See you soon, guys.
Okay, let's keep on going. We've got people saying, "Hung, get me on next," because I'm leaving at 1. So
yeah, I've got to actually bounce now, Hung, as well. On that note,
it's not even 1 o'clock, Christine. You're gonna
I know.
bounce early.
I'm gonna let you walk to the other unit. So I can't automate that.
Can't get the staff these days. Okay, listen, Christine. This is totally fine. Good to see you. We'll catch up soon, okay? I'll see you when
take care. That was so great. Looking forward to I'll watch a replay for the rest. But yeah, thanks all. It was great.
All right, take it easy. Cool. Bye. There he is, Alan Walker.
Oh, I've got like a big face there. Yeah.
Alan, how are you doing? All right? I'm good, mate. I'm good. Sorry to keep you so long. I know you've got a deadline, so you've got 4 minutes, mate. Go ahead and show us what you got, fella.
Cool. Very quickly then, why did I make this? So I'm not a recruiter anymore, but we work with a ton of recruiters at Udder, and we often ask to help solve a little weird range of different problems. One that came up, the client said, "Hey, we want to leverage ChatGPT." I was like, "That's a very broad question. What do you want to get out of it?" And one of their big challenges was new recruiters recruiting for new roles that they've never ever handled before. Where do they start? So we thought we'd have a little play around and see if we could build a little tool. So let me share my screen. So we built this using Bubble, which is a no-code development platform. I wouldn't even call it that. It's pretty much drag and drop. And it links to ChatGPT using an API that we initially used one from Bubble's marketplace, but then since I've rewritten it, because it makes it a wee bit faster, because the one thing you're always reliant on is how quickly you get a prompt back. Are you seeing this okay, Hung?
Yep, go ahead, mate.
Yeah, so in essence, we built this little tool that does 4 things. It can generate hiring manager questions, so questions for the recruiter as part of a briefing session, to ask the hiring manager about a role that maybe they've never recruited for before. So we can ask a mix of general and technical questions, just general questions, just technical questions. It can write a job description, it can write a job ad, and it can write some interview questions. And I guess the secret sauce behind this, anybody could go into ChatGPT and to a certain degree generate all of this. But I've been using it now since the beginning of December when it launched. And I think much of the getting the most out of ChatGPT is asking it the right questions and asking it in the right way. And that's what I've tried to build into this. So let me just give you a very quick demo of it in action. Let's go with short amount of questions. Let's say something really random that I know absolutely nothing about. So let's say we're hiring for a nuclear physicist. I can't spell correctly. There we go. So this is from scratch and live, hence the bit of a delay. But I can go to a pre-filled in one if that helps, Hung.
No, I can see it moving. I mean, the scroll bar gives us confidence.
Yeah, okay. Cool. So there you go. We've got 20-odd questions to ask a hiring manager about a nuclear physicist. So some generic stuff and some more things that are more specific to actually being a nuclear physicist.
Yep.
And from there, we can then go, okay, I like that. I want to write a job description. So similar thing, really. And I haven't done this to sell it, by the way, Hung. This is just something to a certain degree I wanted to play around with and see whether I could build it. I think I knocked this up in around a couple of hours. Very back bedroom stuff.
And that's incredible when you think about it, because Alan, I hope you know what I'm saying, but you're not a developer by trade at all. So
not now, but I actually was before I moved into recruitment like 20 years ago. So I'm not complete numpty.
I thought you were a numpty, mate. And I was going to give you extra credit for being able to produce an app, but actually you're a program. No, you're not. But the point is, you must be like quite distant from building apps, and you can imagine doing this, it looks like something that anybody with a bit of time, like a couple of hours, can learn how to do. But this type of stuff, even 3 years or so ago, would have been a product roadmap. You'd have to map this out. You'd have to get developers on it. You'd have to get stuff going on. There was no code at this level. There was no ChatGPT at this level. But here, basically, a semi-technical recruiter can produce an application that can do all of this stuff. And you can see immediately generation of interview questions, generation of job description. The opportunities are endless.
One really, sorry to interrupt, one really good example of that is when I was listening to the last panel. One of you guests, I've forgotten the name, I do apologize, but she mentioned that as well as generating interview questions, you could also use ChatGPT to give examples of good answers for those interview questions. And I thought to myself, that's not in mine. That's a really good idea. Yep. So literally, whilst we were on the call, I added that to it, so I can generate the questions first.
Scroll bar gives us hope.
Oh, it is a little bit painful, but this is
no. Listen, mate. I used to remember loading in computer games by cassette, mate. So I'm all right. I'm all right with a couple seconds delay.
So yeah, we get the interview questions there that are specific to that, and then I added this "What does good look like?" button, and it goes back and gives me some responses that I should look for from a good candidate, which I think is just bonkers good. And that's about 8 minutes to add.
Yeah, and when you think about it, I mean, this in the hands, or like you think of the learning curve that this will provide a entry-level recruiter, early career recruiter, or whatnot, it's just going to accelerate their development so much more. And you know what? The next generation of recruiters that come in really are going to be so fluent with this types of technology that they're going to outperform and outcompete the ones that aren't. And one of the key messages that I've got to everyone listening to this is that, look, the time to be skeptical about ChatGPT was basically December, but now it's February, and we need to get good at it. We need to get good at this technology, because I don't think it replaces recruiters, but recruiters that know how to use generative AI will replace those that don't. So it's part of the reason why we're committing time to do these shows. Basically, I'm evangelizing over it because I think we need to get to grips with it. This is something we need to know. Okay, Alan, listen, thanks for the demo. You got to go, so go. Great to see you, sir. We'll catch up soon, okay?
See you soon.
Cool. Okay, Paul, thanks for waiting. We're going to get you on. Sal, please be patient. We're going to get you on in a second. We have Paul. I was going to say bachelor, but he's not, because I think he's French. So that's, I won't even want to pronounce this. I'm going to have to allow Paul to pronounce his own name. Don't want to mangle his surname. So let's bring him on. And I hope he's not in San Francisco either. There he is. Paul, how are you?
Cool. And you?
Okay, how do you pronounce your second name, Paul?
Paul Bachelier.
Bachelier.
France.
Perfect.
You can hear it from my accent.
I know. This is, and everyone loves the French accent, particularly the French accent in English. So I did not want to mangle your surname, sir. Paul, why don't you quickly introduce yourself? Who are you? What it is you do? And then we dive straight in.
Yeah, sure. So I'm one of the co-founders of HireSuite. Originally, we were a tech marketplace based in France, so I've been a recruiter myself for a few years, and we developed a lot of tools internally, so both web tools, but also R&D algorithms. And so we decided to build them inside a HireSuite CRM to provide it to our clients. And that's what I'm going to show you quickly today. So now you can see my screen. So I'm sure most of you know what a CRM is. You saw previously what an ATS is. CRM is pretty much going before and after the CRM. So you have your projects, you're organized by projects, you are linked to your ATS. So for instance, here with a greenhouse, you have your contacts database that you can search, you can make requests. For instance, I'm filtering on all my technical recruiter in my database. You have your sequences, and we'll get back to this part because that's where we put ChatGPT, GPT-3, sorry, our analytics to improve your reply rate, to try so much more sequences every time. But what we noticed is that our clients were still struggling with writing the first sequence, because what we recommend is writing sequence with multi-touch points on various sources. So for instance, if you send an email, you can double your reply rate by sending follow-ups. And it was hard for our clients to write them. So at first, what we were doing is that we were providing them with a library of good sequences with all the best practices we've learned along the way. But we've been thinking for a few years already to generate automatic sequences, and really GPT-3 was a breakthrough for us. So we were able to use it, and that's what I'm going to show you today. So it's pretty easy for the user. The results are complex, but it's a really easy interface. You just have to choose the language. So we have different languages available. So we'll start with English on our side. The goal of this page is really to write a good sequence for a given job position. So we'll start with a classic tone of voice of casual. For a second demonstration, we can go crazier. A classic structure 2, an email with 2 follow-ups. The company description, I've put the company description of HireSuite, and you can copy paste your job description, for instance. But here, let's just say that I'm looking for a head of talent acquisition in charge of interviewing, sourcing, sorry for the typo, sourcing and hiring talents. And I can just run it. So in 10 seconds, I've put my inputs. So now it's requesting the OpenAI API. And what's really good is that you'll see a mix of ChatGPT, but also we've spent hours engineering the prompts to feed it with all the best practices we've learned. We also have a sourcing guide that I can link in the chat after. And you can follow my co-founder, Robin, on LinkedIn is sharing a lot of best practices. What's a good subject? What's a good follow-up? How you should end your first email with a question. And here we are, the results in less than 20 seconds. So for instance, you have that's what I was saying, you have a good catchy subject. So a chance to lead talent acquisition at HireSuite. Then you have token of personalization. So we introduce with the first name. So that's the message. And yes, Ivan in the chat, you will be able to test yourself after. I'll share a link. We've prepared something special for you. So I'm introducing myself. So I'm Paul, my role at HireSuite, and a bit of the description. Then there are tokens of personalization. So we've really made the link between GPT-3 and our platform. So we are able to get the job title of the person, the current company, but also the duration of the experience. I show you an example of a real profile after. And this closing question, can I share more information on the role? That's our advice on the first be really open, just aim for the yes, and then you can engage the conversation. And if that's not for now, it can be later. What's interesting that I was saying you should not stop after the first email. So that's a pretty good first email, but you should have follow-ups. So it's not generating a second email, it's really writing a follow-up. So I hope this message finds you well. I'm following up on my previous email about the talent acquisition role. Would you be open to learning more, etc. And a third one 1 week later. So that's a pretty good sequence. We had a lot of discussions in the chat. You should not trust AI 100% every time. You should review it. You should improve it. It's really a good basis for you. But let's say that I just saved this one. Now let's get to the second part. Let's source some good candidates. So let's say that I was on LinkedIn. I found the perfect candidate. So I found Hung. I import it with my Chrome extension inside HireSuite. Let me just refresh this page. And now I want to contact him with the sequence we just created together with GPT. So I just add my sequence. And here we are. You'll see that everything is populated automatically. So Hung, the first name, is populated. I hope you can read my screen. I'll make a bit of zoom. You'll see that your experience as a curator at Recruiting Brainfood is interesting for us. And you've been doing it for 5 years and a half. So we've been calculating everything for you. You've been preparing all the work. What's interesting is that we are not saying 5 years and 4 months, because that's what a machine would say. That's not what a human would say. So we're making it smart. 5 years and a half is much better. And we're connected with the Gmail API. So I can just click the send button and everything will go directly to your mailbox. So Hung,
Right.
if you're interested.
I'm on my inbox right now. There we are. We've seen it. A message
Perfect.
from Paul Bachelier. It says, "Hi Hung, my name is Paul. I'm CEO of HireSuite." That's a lie, but okay. And we created HireSuite. And I'm reaching out specifically. That is a good email, bro.
Thank you.
That is a good email. This is
and
amazing.
what I was saying, yeah. So I should have reviewed it carefully, but what I was saying that everybody can use it now because we've made it. Our tech team has worked a lot. So thank you to them. They were committing, pushing and committing just before the call. So everybody can access it now. I'll share the link in the chat right after. But if you want a second short one, you can say that Hung Lee is a founder and a recruiting for Brainfood community. You can have fun with tone of voice. So it won't go as far as as ChatGPT, but let's say you want to use gangsta rap, and you can hire a community manager. You can run it too, and it will be the same. It will be so it can really adapt to everything. So you can even in the new version, you can even see it right in the background. So it's really good, and you can use it yourself. So with the the WhatsApp, so you're a real rapper.
You know what, Paul? That's again. I'm simultaneously very impressed, but also thinking, "Holy crap!" You know, this is a game changer. And you know, what is it going to do with open rate, for instance? I would anticipate the open rate will significantly improve, because the reality of it is, you can work out what is the better. Mathematically, what is the trigger that will increase the open rate? You can even make that dynamic, of course, because that's going to change as things become cliche. So you can keep that dynamic. But I think eventually recipients will get so overloaded, they're going to end up just collapsing the open rate altogether, simply because they're going to think all of the great messages, they're going to end up having a huge issue with understanding what is basically what I'm trying to say is there'll eventually be a ChatGPT email manager that's going to be a countermeasure against AI generated messaging, and we're going to get a bot-to-bot conversation going. That's going to be super exciting. It's going to give us some additional things to think about. Okay, Paul, that's great stuff. Paul, why don't you share the link into the chat stream there? Make sure people know who you are and can connect with you. I'm sure people are going to be very excited to experiment with this CRM integration with ChatGPT. Okay, cool. Let's keep going. Thank you so much, Paul. We are going to bring Sile on. That's the end of the demos, folks. So Sile's going to come on and he's going to show us the interview notes. Good Lord. I mean, I tell you what, man. I mean, I'm getting to the point where all of these technologies, they're all wows, but I'm over wowed. You know, I'm getting to the point where, yeah, I expect the magic. Do you know what I mean? It's no longer, yeah. Like I can see the elevation of expectation of myself just going up, constantly upward. And I think the old technology that you could get away with 6 months or so ago, I think will look very, very dated very, very quickly. And that includes stuff that Brainfood's doing. I'm looking at the Brainfood larder, for instance. Yeah, it was kind of okay for a while. Now I look at it and think, holy crap, man. That's going to look like it's obsolete. I need to apply something there, and things are going to happen on that side. So, listen, Sile, thanks for being patient. Let's have a look at AI Notes. Explain for us what this innovation is for folks who perhaps used Metaview before and they know the basics. How is this different? How is this an improvement?
Yeah, sure, we'll do. And some of you may have seen a demonstration. We did this a few weeks ago, but there's a few advancements since then. Hung, just confirm you can see my screen okay, is that right?
Yep, that's fine.
Yeah, cool. So if you think about what we've seen so far, a few of the demos, not sort of to go through all of them, we saw a CRM, which sort of helps you better engage with candidates at the very top of the funnel. An ATS helps you track those candidates during the funnel and, you know, respond to them by email and this and whatnot when they're in your pipeline. What Metaview is all about, and what I'm going to show you is all about, is understanding what's actually happening with them when they're in process, so actually in the interview process. And the new feature we're launching to support this is called AI Notes. There was also a couple of questions actually in the chat before around, well, what's the difference between the summarization of an interview and a summarization that we might get if I just, you know, used the embedded summarization feature in Teams or some other tools out there as well, which we're going to sort of explore with this as well, which I think is a really interesting concept for the folks on the call and you, Hung, to sort of get your head around. Like, when does it make sense to be really use case specific, and what can you design better prompts because you know what the conversation is supposed to be about, and how does that improve our product in this case? Anyway, point is, with Metaview, we record and transcribe the interviews. So that's always been the case for the last sort of 4 years or so. You leave an interview with a recording of the video and a transcription. Really useful for various reasons, to make better decisions on candidates, better observability. But if you speak to recruiters and interviewers, a lot of the time they'll see their biggest frustration is the same thing. For a recruiter, it's not really knowing what's happening for the candidates that they source downstream. They don't understand how their interview went and how to do how to source better next time. And for the interviewer, they just really hate writing up their interview notes. And actually interview notes solves both of these things. So if I click on now on the summary tab, what you're seeing here is a automatic GPT powered summarization of the interview itself. So Metaview now automatically identifies a sort of thematically what the question asked was, and then constructs concise bullet points of how the candidate answered the question. So you no longer, as the recruiter or the interviewer, have to focus on scribing, what the candidate, how the candidate responds to these questions. Metaview does that for you. One of the really cool things we've launched since last time is we now also do the same thing for candidate questions. So we automatically identify what were the questions that the candidate asked the recruiter or asked the hiring manager during the interview. So you, again, as a recruiter, can have a much better summarization of the sort of the sentiment or the motivations of the candidate, because you know the actual questions they've asked about. A final thing that I think is really cool that I want to show is the way that folks tend to use this feature is, let's say I was the recruiter for this role. This is the final stage interview. I really want to know how they got on. So I dive into the interview summary to see, what did the interviewers actually focus on and that sort of thing. Here I can see they asked about their career ambitions. And actually the candidate gave an answer that actually is not super familiar to me. Hey, I thought they answered it differently when I asked that question earlier in the funnel. I can actually jump to that point in the actual interview now and listen back to that moment. So I can go from having a sort of a very brief summary of the conversation. If I want to validate that with my own eyes, my own ears, I can jump to that moment in the transcription or jump to that moment in the video and actually listen back to that. So yeah, really powerful way to just give you a much better understanding in a concise way about what is actually happening in your interviews. So you don't have to take the notes yourself, and you don't have to chase up hiring managers and interviewers for, hey, have you got your notes ready? Have you got your notes ready? I really want to know how they got on.
Yeah, there's another thing that's occurred to me as well, Sile, is that this type of recording and analysis, I think, is just going to be a massive confidence booster for the hiring decision to be made.
Yeah.
Because if you imagine back in the day, hand scribe notes, they obviously don't go anywhere. They're going to be in the recruiter's hand. The recruiter will type something up. It'll be like an edited version, a very rough summary of what those notes were. But there's enough of a change that the hiring manager can't be overly confident in that. And there'll be a pause, there'll be hesitation.
Well, not just that, Hung, but we work with some amazing customers, and even these like really high performing organizations who've done an amazing job hiring an amazing team. If you look at the time between interview to scorecard written for even some of the best companies on the planet, it's usually averages close to around 24 hours. And in many cases, of course, far longer than that. So what that means is you're having interviewers who are doing an interview in the morning, let's say, getting on with the rest of their work, really focusing on their other objectives, getting pinged by a recruiter saying, hey, like you still haven't written your feedback, and thinking, oh crap, I better write something. Because their main job at that point is to write something so the recruiter gets off their back, not write up a really thorough and accurate reflection of what we discussed in this interview. And that has all sorts of downstream consequences on the quality of course, of the folks you hire and the quality of the experience you give the candidates. And that just completely goes away now. I think that's a really important point too.
Yeah, the trust factor goes up massively. It goes up massively with this, and that will accelerate. If there's one thing that accelerates the decision making, is that, because a lot of the assessments that companies do is fundamentally about there's not enough, we don't trust it enough, therefore we put another layer of assessment in. But here you've collected the assessment, you've analyzed it, you summarized it without too much of a human hand, without the administrative load, and then suddenly I think decisions get made much more quickly as a result.
Yeah, which actually I think I think there's all these downstream really sort of things that can impact the decision a lot. I'd still say the vast majority of the feedback we're getting is just great. I don't have to write this now. That's like really, really awesome. And I can focus on doing other things. That's still like the emotional reaction we're getting is much more tactical. It's like, great, I'd have to do that. Another sort of tactical thing that I think is important though, is how you can start to use this to create the baseline of the scorecard. So I think what we've got here is not necessarily, hey, this is your scorecard, don't write the scorecard, because you still want your trusted lieutenant's sort of perspective on should we hire this person. Metaview's not doing that, nor would we want to, but it is providing you the sort of, it's moving the job from one of like starting with zero and having to create a whole synthesis of the conversation to actually starting with 80% of the content. You edit out the bits that you don't want, you add your recommendation or your interpretation where it's needed, and just actually focus on the things that you, the human being, are really valuable for, and let Metaview do the rest of it. Yeah.
Again, I think Metaview marries perfectly with ChatGPT. It's just it's a crazy alignment on this. So thank you so much for that demo. You can use this already, can't you? I mean, what's the dealio with this?
Yeah, so if you're a customer already, of course, you're probably using it. I've seen a few folks in the comments saying they're super enjoying it. So thanks for that. So yeah, customers, it's part of our sort of existing tier, as it were. It's part of our existing package, so that's fine. If you want to give it a go, then if you head over to metaview.ai/notes, you can get started with 5 interviews for free. So just to give you a taste of the magic, essentially. So yeah, definitely recommend you give it a go. It's incredibly lightweight to get set up initially. You can literally have your sort of interviews. If you had some later this afternoon, you can have them with these sort of magical AI notes. It's really sort of easy to get going.
Yep. And by the way, folks, TA needs to demonstrate its facility with this type of new technology and add more value to the hiring process. That's very clear as far as I'm concerned. So if there's an opportunity to use tooling of this type, go ahead and grab it. Sal, thanks so much for your time and spending with us. Go ahead.
Can I just say one more thing? I just remembered I made the point that a few of the folks had commented or asked about, hey, why wouldn't I just use a stat like GPT embedded in Teams? So the big reason why you'd want to consider not just using an off-the-shelf summarizer, which is now becoming, you mentioned it's one of sort of OpenAI sort of real strong points, real use cases, summarization, is us being aware that this is an interview creates a lot of valuable, it creates a lot of value. One, it means we can summarize the conversation in a way that is contextual to knowing this. We're mainly trying to learn about the candidate here. This person who we've identified as the candidate, because we've identified them in the ATS as the person who is the candidate, is the person we're looking to learn about. So our summarizations are not just meeting summarizations, they are interview summarizations. And the second thing is, and other things like picking up, well, this is a candidate question, so you're interested in other, that's interesting for a different reason. So the quality of the summary is much better when you take a use case specific approach. And then the second reason is workflow. So the fact that you can push these summaries or snippets of these summaries directly into your applicant tracking system. The fact that your recruiter gets in, if you're a recruiter and you decide to roll this out in your pipeline, so downstream, your hiring managers and interviewers are using it, you're going to get a notification saying, hey, there's another summary available for this candidate on this rec. Makes this much more, that all those use case specificity makes it much more powerful for, well, in our case, recruiters.
I agree. I think an interview is a very specific kind of meeting. It's very, very different, just in terms of the purpose of it and the context of it. I mean, it's not like an internal meeting. It literally is what is trying to transition someone from external to internal. Mm-hmm. So it's very specific. So yeah, I think that's additional context. Sal, a great demo. Great to see you as well. Let's catch up soon, man.
Yeah, let's do it. Cheers, man. Bye.
Cool, folks, we're nearly there where we have the final stage, the final part of the show, which is now we're going to bring on the old heads. That's right. The only people coming on here are bearded and bald. That's the new hiring criteria for the final part of this show. These are all the people that essentially are going to doomcast our way to the end of it. So we've got Matt as well. Where is he? There he is, Sussex Matt. There's Adam. How are you doing, Adam?
Well, how are you?
I'm very well, mate. Very well.
In fact, I know how you are. I've been with you for the last hour and 23 minutes.
Yes, thanks for watching, mate. And is that a Spurs top there? I mean, what's going on? Have you changed your tune? Is Rangers out? What's going on?
I just liked the top. I bought it a few years ago because I liked it.
Yeah, doesn't he look like an extra out of Tron or something? That's it. Very sci-fi. You just need some glow sticks and you'd be there. All right. We've got Matt as well. Adam, why don't you quickly introduce yourself? Everyone knows you anyway, but maybe there's new stuff to know. So who are you? What is you do, man?
So yeah, I'm Adam Gordon. I've been in recruitment since 1999. I've been in recruitment technology since 2015, 2016. And I build recruitment tech companies. Although not at the moment, but I might do in the future.
Indeed. That's to come, isn't it? You've got exciting things to bring us in the near future, and we're waiting for that. We've also got Matt Burney here. Matt, great to see you. I understand you haven't been well. Great to see you looking fit and healthy. Hopefully your health issues have concluded and you're back and fit with us, mate.
Well, yeah, my voice still sounds absolutely terrible. For everyone listening, I'm just recovering from pneumonia and pleurisy, which has been horrendous. So, yeah, this is the first time I've actually spoken to large groups of people in quite some time.
Good Lord.
Yeah, not been fun, man. Not been fun.
Well, Matt, I mean, if you're struggling to speak, don't strain yourself too much. I'd hate for you to get yourself into a bit of bother, but great to have you on the show. Can you quickly introduce yourself? Who are you? What it is you do?
So, yeah, I'm Matt Burney. I've been in the recruitment industry, about the same time as Adam, really. I think 98, 99 was my first sort of venture into recruitment. I've worked all over the world, worked all sides of the table. And currently I work as an internal consultant with Indeed. Basically sort of looking at data, recruitment trends, recruitment technology, all that kind of stuff. So, hopefully I can add a bit of perspective. I've been talking about this subject for a really long time as well, you know.
Fantastic. And we've got Martyn Redstone as well, who is trying to get on, but unfortunately he's not being able to do that.
No.
Let me, what's wrong with Martyn? He's all right, isn't he?
Was it? No, I'm saying you forgot to invite him the last time, and now he can't get on the next time.
I
didn't forget. I did, and I do beg your pardon. And I want to get him on because he has been like the man on conversational AI, like ever from the beginning. So he needs to come on. Martyn, I've just tried and re-invited you there, so hopefully you can come on to that. All right, folks. The reason why we're on here is to kind of long cast this. And give it a longer view than we've seen. We're obviously very excited about ChatGPT. We've seen some great use cases. There he is, Martyn Redstone. Great to see you, mate.
Hello.
Martyn, quickly introduce yourself. Who are you? What is you do?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Martyn Redstone. I've been in recruitment not as long as the other two, but I've been in recruitment for just over 17 years. But for the last 6 years, I've been in conversational AI for recruitment. For the last few months, actually, well, I'm a conversational AI consultant. I now work with Europe's largest conversational AI consultancy, Agency. And I'm also on the side, the founder of BotJobs, which is a job board for conversational AI-based roles.
Indeed.
There we go,
so,
in a nutshell.
In a nutshell, and great to see you on the show. Have you noticed, folks, there's a theme. Everyone's bald with beard. Adam's got a toupee. Because he is bald.
He won't turn around to see the backs.
There was somebody else that was bald that was going to come on as well, and I forgot who it was.
Alan, he was on earlier. Yeah.
Alan Walker, of course. Anyway, folks, we're going to long cast this. We're excited about the technology. There's going to be obviously a buzzy period. Recruiters are going to get excited by it. But what is the prognosis longer term? How are you seeing? With Bill Gates today, just come on and say, listen, this is going to change the world. What are your thoughts on this technology? Is it going to change the world? And if so, how? And how is it going to affect our industry? Thoughts on this? Let's go with you first, Matt.
Well, I think if you look at all of this, it's also worth thinking about context and thinking about the history of how we wound up where we are. I mean, you mentioned earlier that there weren't tools like this around 4 years ago. Well, actually, they were. They were kind of really, really hidden, and they were really widely available, but they weren't as good as what we're seeing now. It required a bit more work to do this. And if you wanted to go and create a company, a person, an interview, a job advert, you could do all of that. It's been around for a really, really long time. Accessibility is what has changed more than anything. I don't know if you remember things like this person does not exist. I used to do a presentation about this person doesn't exist, and then there was the natural progression of this company doesn't exist, this CV doesn't exist, this interview doesn't exist. They were all out there, and they all kind of worked. And if you played with them, you could get them to do similar things to what we're seeing now. So with generative AI being where it is now, I think we're at that tipping point, right? So everybody's now got access to something. Everybody can start using it. I think the question is, how does that get used better in the longer term? And what does that mean for things like authenticity? So one of my biggest kind of red flags around all of this is when you think I could create a fake company with a fake board and a fake EVP, and I didn't do this, I know other people who did, put that company onto LinkedIn, and then you could catfish people into jobs that didn't exist and put them through an interview process online that didn't exist. That's a real authenticity problem. And, you know, I know people in law enforcement who are saying this is actually a big fraud problem already. That's a bit far out there, but there is a question around, okay, so I could go and create my company page. I could put my employer brand together using a chat tool. Great. Well, how authentic is that? You may have put a few parameters into it, but the authenticity piece has gone further and further away. You mentioned that piece about email as well, with people getting a huge amount of email coming in. And okay, so how do I deal with that volume of email? Well, getting your own chatbot to do that is a thing. It was a thing some time ago. I don't know if you remember Esther Crawford, the woman who now works for Twitter. I forget where she was previously. She built a chatbot to sit on her phone to answer all of the recruiter inquiries that she got, and then she stuck it on her email, everything else. And she found after a while that it was bot-to-bot conversations she was having back then, and that's pre-pandemic. So this is already happening, and it's going to get kind of worse. So I think there's more to come. You know, if you look at things that I saw yesterday, generative AI for video, amazing, absolutely amazing stuff. I've not played around with it yet. I'm really looking forward to playing around with it. But there's problems within that as well. So if you go and create an employer branding video that doesn't have real people in it, doesn't have a real office in it, those are all future problems that I see that we're going to have with this. One of the other things that I think is going to come along is legislation's a big problem. It never catches up with tech. We all know this. We've already seen with generative AI for art that it is actually copying artists. There was a lot of stuff came out this week where subtle changes in an original image, but it's the original image that's being used because that's how it learned. The obvious question for this is it going to do the same for text? So if you've written a book or you've written some training material or you've written something about your company and you say, I'd like AI to write something about my company, well, does it go away and steal it? How do you not know that this is somebody else's content? So we're at that tipping point. It's great. It's very exciting what's going on at the moment, but there needs to be some caution and a bit of rationality. Don't believe everything you get given. AI isn't the be all and end all. Is kind of, I guess, where I think we're at now is play with it, get involved in it. Yes, there's lots of really good stuff that you can do. Don't underestimate how lazy people can be. That's one of the big problems, right? And then when we're thinking about how we go forward, how do we create authenticity within this? Because that's where problems I think are going to lie.
I know how to do that. Authenticity. Basically make mistakes, like put a deliberate mistake in, because AI will never do that. Do you know how you can tell a genuine hand-woven Persian rug compared to something that's mass-produced?
It's got a flaw in it.
Yeah, there's flaws in.
It's a deliberate mistake in every hand-woven Persian rug because the weaver will make a deliberate, conspicuous error in the rug so that you know it's not being machined. And I think that's what's going to happen. We're going to have an artisanal approach to employer branding. In other words, if you go to an artisanal coffee shop, the reason why it's not a Mackie D's type of thing is because, you know what? All the pastries look slightly different because it's literally been made by hand. It's artisanal because it's imperfect, and we'll pay for the imperfection because that means it's a human hand. And we're going to revalue imperfection. It's going to basically be almost like a recognition of the value of labor compared to the value of the market. So I think that's how we're going to do it. This is, by the way, why live streaming is better than overproduced video, because it's chaos, it's a mess, and it's real. That's how it's going to be. But anyway, Matt, you've mentioned really interesting things. The legislative slide, I want to step away from this for a second. But it is very, very important. It could be a big showstopper. What I think could be a conversation we need to have is where do we stand on that? Because I can totally understand from the content creator's point of view that, yes, this is a huge problem because guess what? Artists, musicians, tech copywriters, all of that stuff, they're definitely going to be in the frame of being disintermediated. And they're within their rights to fight for their futures. But at the same time, from a user perspective, it's like, you know what? suddenly I'm getting more access to all of this stuff that previously I would not have been able to get access to. And should we deny that to the users either? I think there's a big ethical issue here, and it's not always on the side of the creator. But anyway, that's something we should talk about later. Let's go to you, Adam, man. What are your thoughts on this? I know you've been studying it, particularly having transitioned out of a business as well, so your mind is open. You know, I'm sure you've been exploring it from an entrepreneurial point of view. What's your lens right now in terms of where we're at, and where do you think it's going to go?
I've got two predictions. The first is that a very large number of recruiters are going to become extinct. And that's because if you take the people that listen into Recruiting Brainfood, the people that have been participating in this show, they are massively ahead, not just on things like OpenAI, but on all forms of how to use technology to become more productive and successful. Many recruiters who are doing things manually today are simply going to go the way of the dodo. So that's one prediction. And there will be a much smaller number of recruiters in 5 years and in 10 years than there are today. So that's my first one. And then my second one is your audience here, the people who participate in Recruiting Brainfood are also typically in smaller organizations. There's a big startup group that's followers of this tribe, etc. So I think that we are talking about this in the context of a lot of the demos that we just saw, absolutely brilliant. HSBC can't use any of that technology or most of that technology. They're not going to equip 500 global recruiters with the ability to self-generate things, especially if they are automatically programmed to put spelling mistakes into the employer brand. So there's going to be a very big difference between what can be done by a London or Amsterdam-based tech startup, recruitment team of 3 people versus what can be done by BP. So I think that's something else that we're going to see two different. We already see it. We already know there's like at least 2 very distinctive types of recruiters. There's the ones who still wear a suit and have to do a lot of things by the book and can't use most of this technology and are on Workday or SuccessFactors and have very, very limited tools at their disposal. And then there's the others who can hack their way to the moon in order to get the right candidate to sign on, the dotted line. So that's my 2 kind of predictions on what's likely to happen.
Wow, big. Let's take them one at a time. I think the great audience, this is to you. Adam made the assertion that there'll be significantly less of us around in a period of time with the use of this technology. Do you agree with that assessment? And if so, what is the shrinkage in terms of the overall market size? I think the latest figures, I'm going with Irina here, who did a LinkedIn search on this. People who use LinkedIn and use English language, essentially, there's 2 million people that call themselves recruiters or talent acquisition folks. So if there's 2 million people, like in 2021, doing the job, how many are there going to be in 5 years' time? Is there going to be 1 million? Is it 500,000? Is it 100,000? What are your thoughts? Let me know in the chat stream. How do you agree with Adam that the overall numbers of recruiters doing the job is going to shrink? And if so, how much by? What is the new number going to be? Let us know in the chat, folks. I'll be interested to know. And if you disagree, by the way, let me know also in the chat and why you think that is the case. What are your thoughts on this, Martyn and Matt? Do you think the size of the recruitment numbers, the absolute volumes of recruiters, are we going to shrink?
Yeah, I mean, Adam's nailed it, hasn't he? The manual recruiters, we all know that they exist. There's tons of them, right? Sorry, Martyn.
No, it's fine. I'm going to agree. I think that I think rather than just kind of disappear into thin air, I think what we'll see is a lot of recruiters that are kind of side moved into different types of roles, like prompt engineering for recruitment, like AI training, etc. So I think whilst we've got these fantastic tools that are going to replace a lot of the mundane grunt work, we're going to have people in place who know how to set up, use, manage, curate, etc. So I think that not only is it going to, what was the saying? AI won't replace people, but it will replace people that don't use it. So it will move down that way. But but there's been lots of reports out. A couple of years ago, the OECD kind of brought out a report around the opportunities for automation and what that means on the workforce of the future. But as we saw in the Industrial Revolution and other revolutions, it creates more jobs than it replaces. And so I think we'll see that with this as well, is that, and it's not, I'm not going to be a doomsdayer and say this is going to happen overnight, but slowly, we'll see new jobs being created that we haven't even thought about. And, I've been talking about prompt engineering for a couple of years now, but we're now starting to see it as an actual role, and there's other jobs as well. So we'll start seeing jobs happening within our industry that aren't there right now, that people are going to move into, because we still need people that are able to do the do when it comes to this kind of technology.
Well, it's already happening. There was no such thing as a talent operations team within an enterprise, recruitment organization 5 years ago, and now there is. They look after the processes and the tech and all that type of thing. So it's already been happening, but it's going to happen faster.
Yeah, we've got Marcel. He's saying 50% shrinkage. I think, Adam, you're probably even more aggressive than that. It's going to be interesting to see. I mean, my views are a little bit, yes, it shrinks as it is, but I do suspect there'll be more competition maybe, and perhaps there'll be, I think, more recruitment companies will emerge. It could just be one person bands. I think suddenly becomes a much more viable and competitive option. Because if you can imagine a one-person recruiter that's highly skilled with generative chat and generative AI, that person's walking around with the firepower of effectively a 10-person team. They can compete, and I think that's going to have a big impact in the market. The buyer of the services should get more variety. So very, very interesting on that side as well.
One thing to take into consideration, I just saw Alan mentioning this, and I agree. I actually think you're a little bit wrong there, Adam, in that big companies are not going to adopt this kind of technology. If you look at, I work with the largest employers that work on the Indeed platform. When I talk to hiring leaders, they're already saying, can we start talking about, what can we do around AI? The gold rush for chatbots happened a while back, but everybody said that doesn't go far enough. And when you think about the investment that's going into recruitment, there is a lot of investment there. We've never had a tighter labor market than we have now. Even if we think we might lose, I don't know, let's say 20% of the jobs that are available in the market now due to recession, which could arguably happen, we're still going to be 25% above that pre-pandemic baseline. So competition is still there. So it's incumbent on the recruitment leaders to use technology to get to that hire as quickly as possible. And I think that's really what we're talking about here. How quick can they do that? And implementation, just to finish up on that, implementation has changed radically. Pre-pandemic, how long did it take us to get an ATS put in? God, years, terrible, nightmarish process. Pandemic comes along, suddenly everybody can go, oh yeah, I can turn that around in a couple of weeks. And the same thing's kind of happening now, because companies are going, okay, even if we're looking at recessionary effects, we've still got a need for people, and we've still got a desire to use technology. So I don't think it'll be the BPs of this world, but I think when you look at high volume hiring organizations, they're already putting these kind of processes in place. They're already looking at this technology, and I think we'll see it happen pretty quickly.
Yeah, very, very.
I don't disagree with that. I think what I was really meaning was, you're not going to get Citibank just going, oh yeah, fine, use ChatGPT, no problem. Just create some new job ads. That's not happening today, and that's not happening in 2024 either.
Yeah, I think compliance will basically be a stopper for a lot of these businesses, particularly if people, we're talking about the legislative side. Is it even legal to use this? Imagine if you're BP, you deploy something or you allow your recruiters to go out and run amok. Suddenly there's a lawsuit that actually using this technology is copyrighted, this, that, and the other. All of your content is actually now all over co-branded, that is now copyrighted, that are subject to copyright. It's a nightmare. So I totally agree. What will happen though, I think it will mean that these bigger companies will be outcompeted for certain types of candidate, because the tooling is going to have an impact. They'll have to compete for other reasons. They'll compete on size, scale, brand cachet, all stuff, which is still very, very powerful, very competitive. Martyn, let's go to you. Again, long view, where's this going? Where are we as recruiters?
Well, okay, so I'm coming at this from a slightly different thought process, because I've been kind of playing around with large language models since Facebook's first kind of Blender bot came out in 2020. So I'm kind of moving that to one side and actually thinking about the bigger picture of what ChatGPT has had the biggest impact on, and why it's been so crazy in terms of its uptake. And that's actually, from my perspective, the fact that what OpenAI have done is put a conversational interface on the front of their technology. And that's why it's been so readily accessible. That's why it's called ChatGPT, basically. And that's why it's been so readily accessible to people, because they've thought, actually, what's the most intuitive way to allow people to use our technology? As people have shown in the technology demonstrations, and Marcel with Zapier, is that you can access the technology using APIs, integration, other technologies, etc. But the most intuitive way that you can provide access to a technology is through conversation, because it's the most intuitive way that we communicate with people around us. Why can't it be the most intuitive way that we can communicate with technology? So my long-term thought process is that if you're a technology vendor in our industry, then you should be thinking long and hard about putting a conversational interface on the front of your technology, because the speed of productivity will be a lot quicker. People don't have to then start learning an interface. Ultimately, the whole point of a conversational interface is it's an interface that understands you, rather than an interface that you have to go and learn. So if I was thinking about this strategically as a technology vendor, yes, it's nice that you can implement GPT and other large language models into your backend to make synopsis and all those kind of things. But actually think about why ChatGPT has been so popular and has been so quick to the fastest millions of users in any technology kind of history, is because of the conversational interface, because they have allowed their technology to be accessed by the masses in a very intuitive way.
Right. Any designers watching this show? Any graphic designers, user interface folks? Switch off now, because I want to say something terrible. I think ChatGPT ends design. I think it just ends it, because if you think about the value of design,
ChatGPT ends design.
Yeah, conversational interface is essentially design free. That's the idea. The reason why we put design. No, let me finish my point. No. I'm on the soapbox here. When you think about design, the reason why you need skilled designers in the pre-ChatGPT world is because you're trying to architect complicated bits of information in such a way that it's accessible. But what a conversational interface does is get rid of that complexity by just putting an input box in there. So really, all you need is an input box. The design choices are things like font and palette. That's it. And that's only as we're still typing in. Once we move into voice and start talking to the damn thing and it spits stuff out, boom, design is gone.
Okay, you presumably mean OpenAI, because ChatGPT doesn't do imagery at all.
No. What I'm talking about is the conversation interface. So ChatGPT is the exemplar that is, I think, changed the paradigm of design, because you don't need design.
You're gonna start my rage off again, Hung, with that kind of comment.
Triggering. I know.
So basically, so let me just a 60-second thing. There is a whole UX subdomain of conversation design. And it's extremely technical and takes a lot of training and a lot of and actually I'm a certified conversation designer as well. So I agree with you to a point in terms of that kind of graphical UX design, but actually there is a subdomain of UX design which is conversation design. And actually it's not as simple as just putting a text box in there. But I agree with you to a point in terms of that large scale kind of
conversation design though is about the responses though. It's not about it's not about the stuff on the screen. But anyway, we'll talk about. Well. Hey, listen, I appreciate I've taken a marginal position. 99% of the people listening to this
sees this.
Who is this idiot? I get it. Okay. We got to go to the questions, folks, because we are running out of time. By the way, some of the demo folks have just been texting me saying, yeah, Hung, about 70 people have just signed up to my product. So yeah, everyone's like totally into it. Get to it, folks. You might as well dive in. Okay. before we dive into questions, actually, no, we'll dive into questions now. We'll finish with the last question in a bit. Let's go here. Oh, Laura said, I get an error message every time I register in this one. Is it just me, Laura? I really hope it is. Because we've been talking for 2 hours, and I hope people have been able to see this. Anyway, Laura, if you get in touch, I'll send you the sort of recording for this. It should be fine. Okay, Sarah says something interesting. Is it possible to upload a document with information into ChatGPT without? I mean, you can cut and paste it, but I don't think ChatGPT is able to access links yet. Is that correct? Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, you're right. Yeah, you're completely right.
You can't do it. Yeah, I guess it might do soon, but you can't do that. Okay. So Sarah,
there's also a limit to the number of. I was going to say you can copy and paste something into ChatGPT, but there's a limit on the number of characters you can copy and paste in as well. So
it's 2,000 character limit, isn't it?
That's right.
That's right.
So, yeah, that's cool. Okay, so some of these questions we've already dealt with, so I'm gonna have to skip them. Does Metaview handle other languages? I don't know, but Colin will get into your style. I'm sure he'll be able to interact with you there. Isabel, we've already answered that. I think just look at Metaview. Oh, I had the time conversion wrong. We've finished the questions. Sorry, folks. Questions are over. So we'll go to the final question for our wise heads here before we end the show. Final question is, okay, I'm a recruiter. Okay, I've listened to all of this. I'm excited. I'm also worried. What do I do? Give me what do I do tomorrow in order to make sure that I'm competitive the day after? Thoughts on this, Adam? You want to go first?
Subscribe to Recruiting Brainfood. Keep turning up for Brainfood Live and raid the Brainfood larder.
Yep, there we go. Which is going to have a conversation interface, by the way, because you know what? Everything that was in conversational interface is now obsolete. Okay, Matt, go. What's the a bit of advice you're going to give to a recruiter watching the show?
Right, I'm going to say I'm in the position of one of my first jobs in recruitment. You know what I would do? Steal everything and use as much as possible to get ahead over everybody else in the room, because that's what everybody does in their first job in recruitment. Make money.
Yep, dive in. And folks, a lot of people have lost work, by the way, and are on the market, etc. I totally get it. You should go and do what you can to get jobs and stuff, but carve out some time to learn this. You might actually find yourself in a position where it's an advantage to have a little bit of spare time, because if you're operationally working under-resourced recruiting team, you're under pressure, you might struggle to actually explore these tools. Whereas if you're out of that pressure for a second, give yourself a week, a couple of days, get deep into this stuff, and you'll be just up-level your skills as you enter into the next role. Okay, Martyn finishes off here. What's the one bit of advice you give to recruiters here?
Well, apart from Adam's sound piece of advice, which was going to be my answer, I would say to experiment, to tinker, and to play with things, with technology. We've seen through some of the demonstrations that we've seen today that you don't need to be a developer, you don't need to be a software engineer to get on top of this technology. So when you've got the time, tinker, experiment, and play with it. Get used to it and get comfortable with it, because it's coming whether you like it or not.
Yeah, fantastic stuff.
Honestly, sorry, can I just quickly add something to that? Honestly, they're not on here, so I can say it, right? If I look at my friends, all the same age as me, like my friends from school, the ones who are like me, who are interested in this stuff, they appear to be their age. The ones who barely know how to use their phone, they appear to be about 25 years older than the rest of us. Seriously, stay young.
I totally agree with you.
Stuff.
Stay young, buy a pair of Crocs, and get into ChatGPT, folks. That's the way to do it. This is the route to immortality. Right, folks, Absolutely. We have to finish.
I'm 70 years old and I use technology every day.
That's it. Everyone here is already nudging 85 plus. We're still here. Okay, folks, that's it. We have to get off the screen. I think we're going to get kicked off by Crowdcast anyway, because we've gone to nearly 2 hours. Listen, thank you so much for our guests here. Too many to thank, but our final old heads. We should actually do this as a regular. I like the idea of getting some bald folks in.
Have to work the lighting out a little bit.
Yeah, just the Doomcasters are to the end. So, Martyn, great to see you, mate. We'll catch up soon, all right?
Great
Matt,
to be here. Cheers.
Wonderful to see you. I'm glad you're feeling better. Take care of yourself, mate. We'll catch up soon. And Adam, listen, great to see you, mate. I'll be back in HQ soon enough, so look forward to catching up with you then, mate.
All the best to your mom.
Yep, she'd be okay, mate. Thank you very much.
Cheers.
Wow, that wasn't that great, folks. By the way, I've got loads of people trying to connect with me on LinkedIn, so thank you very much for doing that. However, I've hit the connection limit and I can't actually add any more people without deleting a bunch of people, which is actually a really difficult thing to do. So if you want to, you can follow my account if you want there, which I think is more or less the same thing, or subscribe to the newsletter, which you can find on recruitingbrainfood.com, and email me once you've subscribed. Basically, I'm happy to have conversations with any people in the subscriber community. Okay, that's about it, folks. Hope you've enjoyed it. There will be a part 3 of recruiter use cases for ChatGPT, and it's going to be about the problems with ChatGPT. We're going to talk about ethics. We're going to talk about legislation. We're going to be talking about hallucinations. We're going to be talking about, okay, what are the perceived and predictable problems we have once we start implementing this into our work and into our lives. It's going to have a different flavor, but I think an important one to end this mini series on this ChatGPT series. So make sure you follow the channel on Crowdcast for that if you want to keep up to date. We'll be back next week, folks. We are going to be back on 2 separate dates. Tuesday, Valentine's Day, I have a date. I have a date with Mark Chaffee, CEO of Hacker Jobs. He's going to join us for Founders Focus, episode 36. That's going to be on Tuesday, 12 p.m. GMT. Make sure you sign up for that. He is one of the smartest and funniest CEOs in the game today, and it's going to be a great conversation. And on Thursday, we're going to switch from Friday to Thursday next week, because we're going to be talking about hiring in Saudi Arabia and the Gulf states. It's part of the Brainfood World Tour, folks. Our mission to essentially speak to local recruiters about the universal challenges of recruiting. We hear a lot about a lot of regions, but you know what? We don't hear it centered from the people that actually work and live in those places. So we have got local Saudi recruiters, local Kuwaiti and Qatari recruiters are going to join us. They're going to talk to us about what their challenges are and how they go about their job. So I'm sure you'll learn something from that. Make sure you sign up. It's going to be on Thursday, 12 p.m. GMT. Okay, that's about it, folks. Thanks for watching. Hope you've enjoyed the show.